get all the bucket lists completed before we have to head out.
Yeah.
Where are you heading, Lizzie? I missed it. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. We're headed down to Durham.
Oh, wow. Congrats. Yeah. You'll be missed.
Oh, likewise. I'll be rooting you all on from not too far away. So, and I should have put it in my email, Karthik and others, but if you need recommendations on folks to apply, do let me know. I have one person in mind, actually, who's a DC resident who I think would be a great fit and interested.
Totally. Yeah, would love that. I think we, so, and also Naomi is also leaving as well, so we'll have an additional seat. So, so anyone that you know of, if you can recommend and get them in the pipeline, that'd be awesome.
Will do.
Cool. So I think we can probably go ahead and get started. Generally, we start with introductions, so I'll kick off. We're now recording. I'm Karthik Balasubramanian, the chair of Multimodal Accessibility Advisory Council. Welcome to the June 2025 meeting of our council. We are a mayorally appointed body focusing on improving the transportation network for folks with disabilities. I have an eye condition called macular degeneration, which makes me not able to drive. So I use bus and bike to get around the city. I live in Ward 6 and work in Ward 1. And generally, very happy to be working on this with good folks. So I'll pass it over to Kelly, and then if you can popcorn it over to other folks as well, that'd be great.
You got it. Hi, Kelly Mack, a longtime DC resident. I live in Ward 3. I use a motorized wheelchair, and that's my primary way to get around these days. And I'll pop it over to Lizzie.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I am a DC resident, also a wheelchair user, a manual wheelchair user, utilize metro, bus, and also a personal vehicle, all, rely on accessibility pretty heavily. So glad to be here as always. I'm one of the council members. I can't remember if I said that. Just looking around, let's see, I can pass it over to Zach.
Hey, hey, good evening, everyone. This is Zach Smith, Equity and Inclusion Vision with DDOT, liaison to the MAC. I will popcorn it to Lakeisha.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lakeisha Love-Pettis, the Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer for DDOT. And so I'm here to just see what's going on, and thank you all. I think, is everyone have been spoken, or I don't know who is actually left?
I think we've got a few other folks. So Zach, go ahead.
Okay. I'm not sure. I'll toss it over to Susie.
Shane?
Sure. Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Karthik. So hi everybody. I'm Shane O'Neill. This is my first time joining. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to leave a little early tonight, but thank you for the invitation. I live in Ward 1. I get around on bike, by bicycle a lot of the time, and I've met Karthik through Families for Safe Streets, which I am a member of as well. Thank you all.
Perfect. And then who else? We've got Susie. Susie, would you mind introducing yourself and then passing it over?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Susie McFadden-Resper. I am the ADA Compliance Specialist for the DC Office of Disability Rights, and happy to be here today. I'm also a wheelchair user, but I drive a car, so I'm petrified of public transportation.
Got it. And let's see. And Jonna, actually, we've got Jonna as well.
Thank you, Karthik. Hi,
Hello.
everyone. I am Jana. I'm the Pedestrian and Bicycle Safety Program Manager at the DC Highway Safety Office. So I'm excited to join as a liaison for the Highway Safety Office.
Wonderful. So welcome everybody. We generally have a few other folks who kind of trickle in as well, but I think we can go ahead and get started. We were hoping that we would have DPW confirmed for today, but unfortunately, we've still been still kind of trying to confirm them, and they're still not really responding, which has been super frustrating. We've been, yeah, so that is what it is. We've made a connection with folks from the boot and tow crew, which is good, but we really want to not only talk about enforcement, but kind of even more importantly, for what we've identified is sidewalk clearance or snow clearance on sidewalks and curb cuts, making it completely impossible to traverse the city on sidewalk during snow events. And that's something that we want to talk to DPW about sooner rather than later, so that some of the same stuff that happened to many of our folks around the district doesn't happen again for winter 2026. We do also, because we've kind of been running up against a clock, we haven't been able to go back through our minutes. For our previous meetings, we've kind of gone right to 7. So we've kind of had a backlog of minutes that would be great to actually kind of go through, and I can talk through each one of these in turn. And this is kind of a good way for us also, we can pause at any point and talk about any particular issues that we've talked about over the past 4 months. And yeah, so maybe we can start with February. Feel free, anybody, feel free to just come off mute, ask a question. I'll also pause here, and I'll also pause at kind of various points and ask for questions. But I think we can go ahead and get started. So in February 2025, we started off with introductions. In general, we had a presentation about the ADA transition plan that DDOT has put through. We did raise a few questions about kind of the state of the sidewalk network and the quality of the sidewalk data that we're actually capturing. This is something that we're really hoping to still kind of follow up on, because we know that there's still quite a bit of sidewalk that is kind of and also, sorry, I'll note that DDOT has a sidewalk gap analysis program. Or actually, Nao, would you mind if I took over and I can share my screen just so that we can. There we go. There we go. February. Yes, here we go. Yes. So in February, Xavier presented the ADA transition plan. We had a bunch of follow-ups about the specific sidewalk metrics that we're using, and particularly focused on the quality of sidewalks that are either, well, some sidewalks that are completely missing, that sidewalk gap analysis team has presented on in the past, but then other sidewalks that are indicated as high quality but are not in good or fair condition, and are not actually passable. I think we also had some questions about what the actual standard was that DDOT was trying to hit. So that was that was the ADA transition plan, or that was primarily what was focused on in the ADA transition plan. I gave a presentation about the Long Bridge project. I actually have, so we don't have materials from this yet, but there will be, like, the Long Bridge project is a VPRA, Virginia Passenger Railway Authority project that is focused on increasing our rail capacity from 2 tracks to 4 tracks into the district, but they're also going to be constructing a pedestrian and a pedestrian walkway and another bridge across Main Avenue in Southwest DC. The upshot of that, actually, I can draw in an update for an update. There's another community meeting that we recently had. I'll share the documents once I have it, but there's going to be a pretty circuitous route for anyone who's a pedestrian. They're going to block off the sidewalk on the north side of Maiden Lane, which is just north of Main Avenue, in order to make a one-way road, two-way vehicle road. I voiced my displeasure with that because it's basically rerouting people who can't drive all the way around multiple blocks just to increase vehicular access during construction. But yeah, that's the update on the Long Bridge project. In the February meeting, we also made a resolution and passed this resolution and sent a letter to DFHV, the Department of For-Hire Vehicles, specifically talking about the wheelchair accessibility failures that occur, especially overnight. And we invited Director Jonathan Rogers to come present. We also made a couple tweaks to our Multimodal Accessibility Advisory Council principles of street space usage. And then we also talked about daylighting. And this is when we started inviting DPW. We've sent a bunch of emails to them. We've sent them a hard copy letter to multiple folks now. And that was, and then we also talked about other folks to eventually invite to our future meetings. So that was basically our February meeting. I'll pause here. I'll pause here. Any questions, thoughts, any follow-up about February 2025 meeting, our meeting minutes? There are a couple things I want to call out and have a small discussion about, but I'll open it up for now for folks.
Hey Karthik, it all sounds great. And what I remember, I don't know if it's relevant, but we could note that I made complaints to DPW about snow issues and received 0 response.
Yeah.
And I made several complaints.
Yep.
So I don't know if that might be just good for the record.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, totally. So yes, Kelly also noted that she had made several attempts to contact DPW about
it was like their public email, so I should have received something, but never.
To DPW's public email address, but received no response after her multiple inquiries. Multiple inquiries.
Perfect.
Cool. Cool. Anything else? Okay, cool. So then we can maybe we can go ahead and approve these minutes. And then, so I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. And then if someone can second.
Second.
Cool. All in favor? Aye.
I
was not at this meeting, so
Got it. I think that is, yeah, I think that's fine. That's fine. 2-0 can carry it. And so, okay, so now to call out a few other things. So, on daylighting, Nao, can you take over and just give folks a quick primer on the on what's happening and what the process is for submitting daylighting daylighting issues?
Sure thing. I think soon you should all see the survey. So at this moment, we have completed putting together our survey, and we have an instructional document in order to help individuals understand how to complete the survey and also how to complete how to complete a 311 request, because the 311 request, we do need, wrong screen. Because we do need your 311 request number in order to gain access to that data and start continuing tracking this. So just a quick review of the survey. We have our intro page to introduce individuals to daylighting and what this unsafe practice means for pedestrians and bikers and all people who navigate the DC streets. So we start off by providing examples of what a parking violation is to really give individuals a visual of what we are looking for, especially if that's pertaining to illegal parking, which is where our car is located is parked less than 25 feet away from the crosswalk. An illegal sign and the combination of illegal parking and illegal sign. So
and just as a reminder, kind of the reason for, especially for new folks, the reason why this is so dangerous is that when a car is blocking what's called a sight line for drivers, they're much less likely to be able to see pedestrians, especially folks who are either lower to the ground or are slower in general. And that makes it super dangerous for folks just to be able to cross the street. And that's why we've got laws saying that we need no parking within 25 feet of these crosswalks. So all over the city, there are illegal signs that these signs are placed in the wrong place. We've submitted these things through 311 and they kind of go nowhere. So what we're doing is we're creating a parallel system where we can include the 311 request, or we can put it into the 311 system so that it's there. But then we can also track on our end and we can say, this is an illegal, we're eventually going to be able to make a map that shows, okay, like there was a report on this date for this illegal sign, there was a report on this date for this illegal parking, or there's a report on this date for both. And a year later or 6 months later, nothing is still fixed. So that's something that we'll be able to create this new system. We're working with the Pedestrian Advisory Council and maybe the Bicycle Advisory Council on this. We just haven't identified the right person over there, and then hopefully with some other folks as well who are interested in just making sure that nobody gets injured for a dumb reason, like a driver not be able to see them because someone is parked in illegal place. So that's that. Sorry, now you can take over again.
Oh, no worries. Thank you, Karthik. That was a more thorough description than I can give. So just to follow up, and this is just where we require information on your 311 service request ID in order to capture that data. And then, of course, it's mandatory that individuals share a photo of daylighting. And our goal with all of this information is to eventually create a map where we see most of the daylighting, parking violations taking place around the city. And this is really with the intent of making sure that all of these safety issues are being reviewed and taken care of. And and as Karthik said, that we are in the process of meeting with different individuals from different organizations across the city in order to, one, increase our reach, and to try to get more individuals taking the survey so we can start collecting more data. So we are currently in the process of creating or working with a graphic designer in order to get some sort of visuals out there, easy digestible videos that we can put on social media and our websites and share around so that the wider public can have an understanding of what daylighting is and how they can make sure that they take part in reporting on these violations.
Cool. And then can you talk about the meeting that we're trying to get on the books?
Oh, right. That was a meeting regarding all of the individuals from different organizations. And so that's including PAC, and individuals who have been very involved. And so we're asking that they take a review of the survey and then also pass it on within their networks.
Yep. And then, so once we nail that date down, we'll send it out to everybody, like on our list as well. So if you're interested in kind of taking the next step, not just filling out the form when you see this, but then also taking the next step of pushing this out to other people, come to this meeting, hopefully sometime next week. Yes, go for it, Kelly.
Yeah, this looks great, and I'm wondering if it's ready for prime time.
I think it is, but I do want one last look from the pedestrian advisory, the other councils. So we will have another meeting just to share with them and get their final feedback and tweak this. So then we can kind of all start to push this out together next week. Hopefully this meeting will happen sometime next week.
Yes, the meeting is scheduled for the 17th, so I will get that on calendars.
Awesome. Thanks for the great work.
Yeah, Neo was behind this survey, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Nice. All right. Thanks, Neo. I will take over again. So while I'm switching over, any questions about the daylighting stuff? As a reminder for folks, we did send out a letter to DDOT last year asking for them to take this seriously. We kind of got a half-hearted response, which was kind of a bummer. So this is basically like a way for us to just kind of demonstrate the scale of the problem, because I think everybody's kind of sees this all over, but we don't actually have a map yet. And I think this will be very helpful. Yes, go for it, Shane.
Thanks, Karthik. So I know that I saw the survey a couple days ago over an email, and are you still looking for people to do kind of like test submissions? Because I'm out of town right now, but I will be back like early next week, and I have a few spots in mind where I can guarantee you there will be daylighting violations. So I mean, if that's still useful, I could go ahead and try that.
100%. Yeah, and also even once we launch it, we can still make tweaks as well. So 100%.
All right, great, thank you. Yeah, I'll work on that next week.
Cool. Thanks, Shane. So yes, so that was those were our minutes for February. Okay, so for March, going on, in March we had the director of for hire vehicles, Jonathan Rogers, come and present. where we asked a lot of I think good questions. Unfortunately, my overall read. So this is my overall read was that we're still very far away from actually making wheelchair accessible vehicles and the law a reality. And I think / hope they recognize that. They also noted that they don't have oversight over Uber and Lyft, which is a huge chunk of rideshare vehicles. We did provide a lot of good insight. One of the things that we had asked for was asking them specifically that that they track a metric of trips fulfilled versus unfulfilled, and they did say, I think they said that they would start tracking this, or they made a commitment at least to be back in touch with us. They acknowledged the complaints, and they acknowledged the service availability was a problem. They talked about the Wave 2.0 pilot program. Yes. I think so. I wanted to call out one thing where they had committed to follow up with us about a metric, and I think it was this metric here, or maybe it was the wait time. And this is, I think that these two, they made a commitment to follow up with us about two metrics. I don't think it's captured in these minutes, but we'll go back and try to find them. But we did ask some pretty pointed questions. Go for it, Kelly.
Great. Yes. Thank you for flagging that, because I had forgotten that they had promised to follow up on those things. I think no matter what the minutes, what the recording says, I would love to hear about both things.
Yeah.
About the metric of fulfilled versus unfulfilled.
Yep.
And how they are tracking that, because the problem with lack of service is that riders, I know this from personal experience, will cancel once it gets to be so long that they need to get another option for transportation.
Yep.
So I'd love to know that, and I'd love to know about anything that they're tracking as far as service wait times for waves versus non-wave.
Yep.
I think Jonathan had mentioned he hadn't looked at that particular comparison, and I think that would be really helpful.
Yep.
So yeah, that would be great. And I don't know, Karthik, if it makes sense, like timing wise, for us to write to them maybe in July, because it'll have been a couple months, and then to suggest that maybe we meet again like in October.
I think that's great. And I think maybe what we can do in the meantime is just send, maybe if we have like a one paragraph where we just like bring these two bullets up, we can send them an email and say, hey, just wanted to follow up. Do you have this data now that, remember we had talked about this back in March when you came, do you have this data now? We'd also like to, so if you do, please send that our way. And then we'd also like to talk to you, invite you to an October meeting.
That'd be great.
Cool.
And whoever wants to draft, I'd be happy to look at it.
Or would you mind drafting it, Kelly?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to.
That'd be awesome. And then either you can send it or I can send it, and we can strategize around who's best who's best to send it.
That'll be terrific. Yeah, sounds good. I will do that.
Perfect. Yeah, so then that was, we spent most of the meeting on wheelchair accessible vehicles. We talked a little bit more about the daylighting survey. And then I think, I did share a little bit about the time tax. I'll take a small detour. So that ended up making, so the time tax is the differential between the transit time and drive time for any particular area in the district. So I showed some analysis, and I ended up writing it up for a blog called Greater Washington. But basically, the upshot was there are 46 advisory neighborhood commissions. There's subward geographies, and we looked at the combination of a trip, drive time versus transit time, from every ANC to every other ANC, the middle, and it ended up being just over 2,000 trips. And if you going from A to B and B to A, about 4,000 trips. The upshot is that not a single one of those trips is transit competitive with driving. Driving always is faster. And on average, of all of those 4,000 trips across the district, transit takes at least 2.5 times on average more than driving, which kind of means that a 10-minute drive could be a 25-minute transit ride, or worse. Some of these can creep up into the 6, 7, 8 times. And the upshot is, if you're kind of too poor, too young, too old, or too disabled to drive, you're burdened with this time tax, and both your time are less valued, and by extension your life is less valued, because you cannot either afford to or otherwise operate a car, because if you're too young, too old, too poor, or too disabled to drive. Ward, coincidentally or not coincidentally, Ward 7 and 8 are hardest hit by the time tax. And there's some kind of other additional analysis in here, but basically saying, like, the upshot is that both from an equity lens and also from a we need to make DC's transportation network better lens, getting the time tax down is important. Yeah, go for it, Kelly.
This is great. I love the write-up, and I'm wondering if you'd be willing to share the link for that.
Yeah.
I'd love to spread that around. But the other thing I was going to say is, are there like comparisons in other places where the time, where we could, I don't know that it's fair. Like in New York, is the time tax the same? I don't know, that very different cities. But yeah. I'm just wondering if there's comparisons. And the other thing I was just going to say is, I've read a lot of books on using the time tax, I guess you could say. So trying to make the best of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's there's kind of two questions about the time tax. So there's one around, is it relative versus absolute? And so one, there's kind of a general unfairness. That's part one. But the reason I think that this resonates and why there's an absolute, why we really need to get to parity, it's not just for equity, but even for drivers. Our roads are nowhere near able to handle the type of congestion that would result if everyone drove. And in fact, too many people are driving. And a lot of that are people who otherwise would take transit, but not if it takes 2.5 times as long. So even if you have to drive, it is in all of our interests, it is in your interest as a driver also, that we reduce the time tax, because getting other people off the road and on buses or on rail or on any other form of transportation other than driving makes your own drive commute better and also makes our whole system more efficient. So that's actually like a pretty powerful, and this is kind of, this whole idea of like, we need, like, it's not just that it's unfair, but it's also just dumb. Like, it's just bad policy.
And inefficient.
It's inefficient. Exactly. When we have, a bus of 40 people sitting behind a single person vehicle, like, this is not like, we really need to be kind of really stepping up our bus priority game.
I wonder if there's European cities that are examples of addressing this better, or I'm just wondering, like, what could we look to for a model,
Yeah. There are quite a few European cities that have done this significantly better, where with lower time taxes. There's one kind of politically, it's kind of like the congestion pricing. Like, people freak out about congestion pricing, but the core idea is that, like, the core idea is that, like, we want to make sure that, like, the market mechanism can actually kind of correct that the roads are oversubscribed right now because it's too cheap. And in this way, also it's too easy to drive in some places, especially through places. So, like, take downtown, for example. Like, there's a lot of through traffic through downtown. Like, if you're going from one part of the city to another and you're going through that downtown, that's actually really bad because that's a high pedestrian area.
Yeah.
And it also doesn't add anything to downtown. Like, people are just driving through.
Right. It doesn't add to the local economy. Yep.
Exactly. And so a lot of European cities are actually, will make it really easy to drive around, but not through. And that's something that I think, especially if we're concerned about the vibrancy of downtown, like, putting more through traffic onto our highway system where there are no pedestrians, instead of, putting them right through the center of the city.
Yeah. And I know, just personally, as a wheelchair user who has to use transit, there are places that I just say I won't go because it takes too long.
Yeah.
And so that's limiting the economy in a whole other way.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. It's super limiting to economic opportunities. It's contributing to our truancy crisis for DCPS, where you've got students who are on the bus and have to wake up at 5 a.m. in order to get to class on time, and we wonder why, like, people, like, don't feel like we have a chronic lateness or tardiness or even absenteeism problem. Like, just for so many reasons, this is not good.
Do you think that it might be worthwhile to bring in WMATA to talk to them about this? I mean, or maybe you have other ideas.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like, we should definitely invite WMATA in. We are, the bus priority team is going to be joining us for July.
Oh, great. Yes, I saw that. Yes.
I think that'll be really good. In general, they're doing the work of correcting the time tax. It's just, and personally, I think they're doing a great job, but I think we need to help them create a lot more space and help them become more ambitious and
maybe sell it to the community in a way.
100%.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. And I think WMATA is also, it turns out one other stat here is that, like, the district government gives a subsidy, or the district government funds WMATA, and 12% of that money goes to buses sitting in traffic. So it's basically wasted money. Like, we're wasting 12% of our subsidy, which is over. So that 12% ends up being something large, over $10 million.
Yeah. I've been there. I've been sitting there.
Yeah. And that's just the operating costs of WMATA. That's not even factoring in everybody who's wasting their own time.
Yeah, or late for a meeting, or
exactly.
Not that it's happening. So.
So, but WMATA is will be an ally here, and they will be. I think will be maybe we can continue talking about who's best to invite after we talk to the bus priority team. But yeah, I mean, I think they'll be a great ally. Of course, they'll be a great ally because they're, with the same amount of money, they could run more service. So buses would come more frequently, potentially. Everything good that comes associated with higher frequency service, greater ridership, all this good stuff that could happen. So,
and I'm just remembering that the big change in the bus system happens at the end of June. So that's gonna, I think there's gonna be a lot of pains around that. I know I personally am trying to figure out different routes that I need to take now.
Yeah.
So I think maybe following up with them again after that's settled in might be helpful too.
100%. And just a note, so what Kelly's referring to is what's called the Better Bus redesign. And yeah, everything is going to be changing at the end of this month. A lot of routes are getting changed. Everything is getting renamed.
Yeah.
And some routes are being eliminated. And this is something that I'm not sure folks are generally aware of, but that route network, they have two route networks. One route network is what's called the visionary network. And another route network is what's actually being implemented.
Okay.
That visionary network is actually way more comprehensive, but they don't have the money to implement that. And that is, and that is exactly another reason why, we could make a big bite out of increasing the coverage and increasing the service if transit ran faster.
Yeah, I'm just in my own little neighborhood, it doesn't run as frequently as people would like, and it's much more crowded, of course, during rush hour. And but this change that I'm really anxious about is it's no longer going to go all the way downtown. It's going to go to DuPont instead, which means that I have to get on a second bus if I'm going downtown. And do I really want to do that? So my concern is really thinking about, I think that they were trying to keep buses out of traffic instead of thinking about how to keep the traffic out of the bus's way. And I think that they're hopefully open to adjusting as they see how people react, but we'll see. I don't know. I know that it is they decided this is the route, but I'm wondering if they might need to make adjustments over the course of the year or two.
Yeah, in another context, I asked them about this, and they said if more funding becomes available, or they want to upgrade this service. So
yeah, and unfortunately, the budget is not. It's going to be a tough year. It looks like so.
Yeah,
or a few years.
But we should definitely. But I think we can continue the conversation next month.
Yeah,
and then invite them.
Thanks for letting me interject.
Yeah, of course. So that concludes our March minutes. Any kind of further thoughts on March or any other questions? I think then I'll make a motion to approve our March minutes.
Second.
And all in favor of approving our March minutes?
That's an aye for me.
An aye for me as well.
Also wasn't in attendance in March, so I'll chime in on April.
Perfect. Okay, cool. Nice. So we're at 2-0 on March, so we're good on that. Okay, so here we were hoping, so this our April minutes. We were hoping to hear from Director Kirschbaum in April, but she had to cancel right before the meeting. But we were still able to meet. We did send DDOT a bunch of questions, and they responded with some initial responses. I brought up the time tax again here. The follow on for that is in July with the bus team. We did also talk about the arterial straight, our principles as well. We made a small change, just basically to make them more straightforward. And just to say, first priority is always ADA compliant sidewalks on both sides of the streets. We added some follow-up questions, to the questions for the director. We did talk about accessible parking as well. We talked about the 311 reporting process for daylighting. We talked about hardening of DDOT infrastructure, bus lane obstructions, bus rapid transit in DC. These were all things that we brought up in our questions to the director. Increasing the rate of DC pedestrian, or increasing rate of DC pedestrian deaths. The sidewalk assessment methodology. So there are, one question here, and actually, Lizzie, your expertise here, I think, will be potentially useful. There are two groups. So there's a group filling in the sidewalk, a group filling in the gaps where there are no sidewalks, and there are a lot of small residential areas across the district with that problem. But then there's another group, but they don't do sidewalk repairs. And we have a question about how sidewalks actually get assessed. Because we're pretty sure that sidewalks are not being assessed properly. Lizzie, can you shed a little bit of light on the quality of sidewalks and how it potentially doesn't match, like what they report on sidewalks doesn't match the real sidewalks quality?
Yeah, we're talking about that, the one publicly accessible tool, right, with the map and the different kind of ratings and remediation plan. Yeah, I mean, I always sort of go back to Rhode Island Ave, but it's a pretty egregious example. And clearly, right, the director last month acknowledged that this was a known issue. But Rhode Island Ave is essentially not marked up at all for the 1.5 mile stretch, where it has areas that were narrower. I mean, my wheelchair is less than 25 inches wide. I could not get my wheelchair through numerous sections. There are, areas where the tree roots have made it so impassable that you would either need to reroute a block or go down the street. Areas where the sidewalk has eroded into a tree well so that it's not passable. It's not anywhere near ADA compliant in terms of passable width or, the standards for sidewalks. There's areas where panels in the concrete have lifted, 3-4 inches up.
Yep. And so this is where that DDOT transition, the ADA transition plan that Xavier presented, didn't capture this. And I'm wondering, if there's maybe one, if you have bandwidth, Lizzie, if you can just make some bullet points around what we where we are now and what needs to be done. Is that or prioritization? So on our arterial roads, the sidewalk quality, they need to, I'm just throwing this out there, but here are some, right now, the sidewalks on Rhode Island, for example, have these 5 different problems, but their sidewalk tool doesn't show any of these. And in order to fix this, this is what we would recommend. Would you happen to have bandwidth. It doesn't need to be anything formal, just something that we can hold on to. And
Yeah,
and
I can do that. I mean, the reality, right, is I think there needs to be a assess, plan, and remediate. Like it's like, right, this is 3 steps, and each of those steps needs to be prioritized for known arterial ways, and then also, right, looking at areas with high density of residents, areas with, you know, large segments of, you know, subsidized housing. I would also have them focus on those sorts of things. I think they have to apply those criteria.
Yep.
Yeah, I can do, I can give some bullets for that.
cool, that would be awesome. Cool. So this is, yeah, so then hopefully we can later this year, we can follow up with folks. The sidewalk, but I do want to call it like that sidewalk gap analysis there. They don't have any overlap with like repairing existing sidewalk. And I think the Pedestrian Advisory Council kind of fell into that trap a little bit. And it's still an issue, sidewalk gaps in kind of far northwest. It's still an issue, but it's not. But I think this is another, you know, equally, maybe arguably more important issue to actually fix the sidewalks on arterial streets. We also talked about automated traffic enforcement cameras and pedestrian safety and signal timing as well. So these are all things that we added. We kind of went through the DDOT initial responses and added additional questions for them. So I think this is basically what this covers our April meeting. Any kind of further discussion on April? Okay, cool. So I will call for the vote. So I'll make a motion to approve our April minutes. So all in favor of approving our April minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
If you need a second, count me.
Okay. I'm perfect.
No worries.
All in favor and aye. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. Cool. So now we can switch over to our May minutes, where we talked about a recruitment update. We will have another recruitment update. We had the director.
Karthik, sorry to interrupt. My internet dropped right when you were voting, so I on the April minutes. Sorry about
Elizabeth. Perfect. So yeah. So moving on to our May meeting, we've got. We talked about recruitment a little bit, and again, kind of a good shout out for additional. So we will have. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if Naomi couldn't make it to this meeting, but unfortunately, we'll be losing her to grad school in Boston. So we'll have an additional seat as well. So please keep an eye out for good folks and just send them my way. In April, we had a meeting with the director, and we were able to make it through some, but not most of our meeting questions. She did talk about, so we were able to talk about sidewalks, clear lanes a little bit for bus priority, then the sidewalk gaps, but not sidewalk quality, and public engagement. Curbside management is kind of always a focus, but never seems to actually make any moves. She mentioned that they're going to be continuing to look at curbside management. Network planning for bus priority is. She also mentioned about bus priority. We're going to in July. We're going to be able to sit with them and talk about both the time tax and then potentially the state of bus priority in the district and kind of what we can and should expect going forward. she, yeah, so we talked a little bit about the time tax concept with her, and she mentioned that that I don't think it totally broke through, but hopefully it will in the future. We brought up the sidewalk conditions, and the director said she would follow up, but we will follow up as well. We brought up DPW and curb cuts during snow emergencies. The Sal brought up issues around WMATA and metro accessibility. The director also broke some unfortunate news that the bus lanes were being canceled off of the 8th Street Bus Priority Project. Yeah, we expressed our displeasure around that. And then we went on to talk about more recruiting and Kiwi bots. There was a project that potentially could assess the quality of sidewalks with Kiwi bots. And Zach talked about this. We talked a little bit more about the daylighting survey. We talked about how we are going to invite again our DPW director. And then we also approved the creation of subcommittees for capital projects focused on downtown and South Capitol Street, and then also open the door for anyone else who is interested in other subcommittees as well for capital projects. Basically, the idea here is that there are a ton of capital projects, but folks can kind of create a subcommittee, an ad hoc subcommittee focused on an individual project or projects, and they'll meet. They'll invite DDOT representatives who are in charge of those particular projects to meet outside of our traditional MAC meeting. Any MAC members would be welcome to join these subcommittee meetings, and then we can start reporting progress during our regular MAC meetings. So yeah, and then I mentioned that I'll take the lead on the downtown transportation subcommittee, and then also the South Capitol Street project. So yeah, so that was our May meeting. Anything else on this front? Anybody else wanted to add anything that we missed?
I think you covered it from my perspective.
Perfect. Okay, great. So I'll make a motion to approve our May minutes. So
I'll second.
Second. Perfect. Lizzie. And Kelly, do you have a vote?
I wasn't there, but sounds good.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Yeah, perfect.
No worries.
Cool. So that passes 2-0 as well. So perfect. Thank you, everybody. We are now officially caught up with our meeting minutes. So let me stop sharing and then now shift gears back to our agenda. So I wanted to actually start and kick off our subcommittees. Sorry, 1 second. Let me just pull this up. MAACDC.link/agenda. Perfect. Okay, cool. All right. Let me switch over to June. Yes, so switching over to our capital project subcommittees. So I would like to start with the downtown transportation study. That is an ongoing kind of major emphasis of DDOT right now. And then there's also South Capitol Street Phase 2. So question for Zach. Is there someone that we should be interfacing with for both of these studies?
For downtown, I don't believe we're I I'm not sure if we have a study going on at the moment. We had a staff member, Amanda Stout, who left the agency and at the time was looking at hiring, I believe, a consultant to work with the Office of Planning on their downtown plan.
Yep.
But as far as I know, I asked our community engagement team this morning, we aren't actively engaged in a downtown project. So yeah.
So who is leading? Because I know there have been there was a grant from COG for a curbless street and specifically focused on downtown. So who's leading? Is there no one working on that downtown?
As far as I know, most of the downtown initiatives are, and I believe the MAC had Kelly Jong Olson to talk about the work we're doing around Capital One Arena. But the Office of Planning is really leading on the downtown initiative with their public realm exercises. But we don't have a specific transportation focus. I can look into that COG grant.
Okay. Do you know who OP's liaison is to DDOT?
I don't know who's leading that, but I can find out.
Cool, because yeah, actually, that's a good call out though, because we could have we can invite Office of Planning to participate in this subcommittee as well, and then we can invite DDOT's liaison to OP to participate in the subcommittee as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. That sounds great. Then on phase 2 of South Capitol Street, do you know who's the point on this?
I would have to look into phase 2 and what exactly they're doing. I think they're design, maybe construction, but yeah, I can find a POC. Okay,
perfect. Cool. Yeah, once we nail down some times, we can start meeting, or we can, once we nail down some times, I'll send that out, and then we can go from there. Yeah, so that would nicely kick off our capital project subcommittees, and again, just kind of the structure here, super ad hoc. Now that we have the subcommittee structure, if there's a particular, Kelly, Sal, anyone is particularly interested in another capital project, I think it would be great. Would love to support that. We have nowhere near the strength to actually provide meaningful input on most capital projects, but I think this allows us to start offering input into specific ones. And yeah, so
this
that's
is great, Karthik. I'm wondering, is there I think when I checked the list, I wasn't available at the time, but I wonder if periodically if there's a list I should recheck just to see if there's something I could take on.
Yeah. So I think there is a capital projects website, and I will find that. Yeah, basically, I think it's, Nao, if you can try to find that capital projects website and drop it in the chat. I think here it's basically there's probably 50 or more that are in some stage of planning. And so it's really, if there's one street in general or road or one project that you potentially know a lot about, and or have personal experience, I think that's kind of the best type where you can really dig in. And so just maybe take a look at that capital projects list, and we can spin up a new subcommittee.
Will do. Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so then with that, we don't have a guest today, so we're able to kind of clear through a bunch of other other business. But now I'll just open it up to general questions, public discussion, other things that we should be working on. Just a reminder, For June, for July, we'll have the bus priority team, and then for August, we'll have the automated traffic enforcement team at DDOT. And yes, I would. So this is something that I'm particularly interested in with automated traffic enforcement. There have been quite a few people who are dead because of drivers who have racked up thousands and thousands of red light running and speed violations across the district, and just getting them, basically just figuring out how to find them and take their cars away, kind of like just taking guns away from toddlers. Like, we need to figure out how to do that and identify these folks. Or more specifically, just identifying the cars and removing the cars from people with tens of thousands of dollars of fines who are eventually going to end up killing people or injuring people, and understanding how our ATA program can help better identify these folks. Something that I'm deeply interested in. So I think that will be really good. So we'll meet with those folks in August, and we've also included some questions in the DDOT director testimony, or our DDOT director questions, but unfortunately we weren't able to reach that stage to actually discuss with her those particular questions, but we do have some written answers from those. Yeah, so that's June and July, or I'm sorry, that's July and August. But outside of that, yeah, I'll just kind of throw the doors open. Any kind of thoughts, questions, concerns, ideas? What are folks interested in, if anything? This would be the first meeting that we've had. No pressure. The first meeting that we haven't run over 7 o'clock. So it's okay if we just want to fold up today at this time, but if this time to yeah.
I know we already talked about maybe DFHV for some time in the fall.
Yep.
But I'm also wondering about an AV update.
Yeah.
I reached so I saw an announcement about Waymo beginning their testing in DC, and I actually saw a vehicle.
They're around.
And I reached out to Waymo to ask if they are doing anything with accessible vehicles, and they say no. And I also know that they don't have one in development.
Yeah.
And I really would like DC to push to say, look, if you are planning any sort of transportation service, it needs to be accessible. I do not want us to see, I don't want DC to be accepting inaccessibility and for disabled people to be having to wait and be lesser than.
Yep.
Anyway.
Kelly, I think you're being generous by framing this as waiting. I think it's very valid to suggest that if Waymo's not forced to think about this up front, it's never going to happen.
Thank you.
Yep. Kelly, can you forward that email exchange that you had with them?
Sure. Yep. I will do.
Yeah, we can invite them actually.
We could.
So,
my understanding just of following this at a national level is I do not think that there was crews. I do not think that any of the AV manufacturers have an accessible vehicle at this time. And I think if the cities do not make it an issue, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen for sure. So I know at one point, one of them had a Chrysler Pacifica van. I'm not sure who it was. And I'm sure it wasn't accessible, but that vehicle I know can be like made to be accessible. Yeah, 100%. We should definitely,
Yeah.
yeah, we can follow up. At the very least, we can write them a letter. We've already
Yeah,
written
stay
DDOT.
in touch, because I have not received anything from the folks at DDOT working on AV. I think after that kind of comment period that they're reworking things internally, and I'm not sure that I've not seen anything publicly announced about any other work group meetings or anything like that, unless I've just missed it. So anyway, I'll follow up on AV maybe in the fall, maybe September.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
Can I just throw out too, though? I mean, I'm curious, Kelly, particularly in your thoughts. I know that with one of our guest speakers previously, they raised the issue around the fact that there won't be an attendant in the accessible, if you could even, if they put an accessible Waymo on the road, that there wouldn't be a human element to it to secure
Yeah.
wheelchair, handle ramp, etc. Have you thought this through? Like, what are your ideas on solutioning on that piece?
Yeah, I know that manufacturers previously had been working with an accessibility advisory group, like APD might have been involved, Nickel might still be involved actually. There was like Cruise had an accessibility advisory council that was advising them on development. They had a vehicle, Cruise did. And I think it still needed an attendant, but they were working it through. And so, I'm not up on the technology, but I think that they were trying to find solutions, and then GM cut that program. Whereas I'm not sure Waymo is even attempting. And so, maybe what they need to start with is an accessible advisory committee, and maybe they have one, I don't know. And working through this process, I mean, I know, for example, that there's technology to do kind of magnetized lockdown with wheels on certain wheelchairs. I don't know if that's available widely enough, but I know it's something that has been used for people in personal vehicles, for example. And that might be an approach to make it fully automated. Or maybe they should be putting a vehicle on. Anyway, I think that I think that there are things that are possible that aren't going to happen if they don't even try.
Is there an ADA, so I don't know if this is, I guess it's maybe Title II, I'm not sure. Maybe Susie, do you have a sense of whether there's kind of any ADA issue with not offering?
Excuse me, can you repeat that question, please?
Yeah, and any ADA issues with not offering accessible vehicles?
You mean for what type of accessible vehicles, for what agency? You mean like for Metro or
No.
Autobus or car
Waymo?
dealers? What?
Yeah, Waymo?
Oh, I don't know much about them, but I know that Lyft and Uber don't have accessible vehicles.
Uber does. Uber
Pardon me?
does. Uber does, but not nationwide. Uber does, following a litigation in DC that required them to have a waive option. But Lyft is not in DC. And I think AV is an unlitigated, unregulated area at this point. I think, and I don't know that federal DOT has weighed into all of the issues yet.
So when you use Uber, are you using a DC taxi cab service? Do they send those, or do they have their own vehicles?
They have their own vehicles.
Oh, I was told that they didn't have them at another meeting.
In DC, they do. It depends on the city, on the jurisdiction.
Okay. Well, that's news to me because I've heard people say they don't have them reviews. Yellow or cab.
Give it a try. I found it a lot more responsive than cab service in DC.
Okay, great. Thanks. Yes, but I don't know about any of the others.
Got it. Zach, go for it.
Okay, I would just say that yes, this is it's a difficult issue with the AVs because right now they're in the testing phase, and so while they're not carrying passengers yet, a lot of the companies don't have wheelchair accessible vehicles. We have been sort of racking our brains and how to write in the legislation to force them once they have passenger capabilities to require them to have accessible vehicles. They will be required to have accessible vehicles. We want to see that in the testing phase. I think that's just an issue we've been dealing with. One of the things we are trying to do and write into the regulation is that the companies will have to address the MAC on a periodic basis and answer to you all about their accessibility issues and capabilities. But yeah, I think the team is working on it. I can definitely extend the invitation to come to the MAC to talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, it's an issue because right now they're testing the AV part without passengers. So it's like we can't require wheelchair accessible vehicles when they're not moving passengers.
That's really helpful, Zach, and those are good updates. That's really great, and I think it's whenever it makes sense to have them back. I don't think there's a rush, but that's super helpful information, and however the MAC can help figure these questions out, I think that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great call out. Yeah, and then I think we can just invite them directly to come. I think that's great. Cool. Anything else that folks want to talk about? Okay, so for the first time in my MAC history, we can adjourn. So yeah, if there's no other business, no other comments, I think we can adjourn our June meeting. We will meet next on the second Wednesday of July, which is the 9th. And we'll have the bus priority team. So I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your June, and we will see you in July.
Thanks,
Thanks
everyone.
so much. Take care. Thanks. See ya.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.